a young girl named Abby would face her own fight for survival in Virginia's darkness. Can youth and quick thinking succeed where experience failed? The next cave waits with its own test of courage. Abby Peterson's cave tragedy. What invisible danger awaited 15-year-old Abby Peterson on that muggy Virginia morning? At 9:15 a.m. on August 2nd, 2004, she joined 12 other excited teenagers from Camp Cumbie A for what should have been a routine caving trip. Their destination? Island Ford Cave in Virginia's Shenandoah Valley, a limestone formation with over 2 miles of mapped passages. With the air hanging heavy at 85% humidity, Abby eagerly slipped on her yellow helmet, adjusted her LED headlamp to full brightness, and listened as head counselor Jim Bryce explained key safety rules. Why didn't anyone see the warning signs? None of the 6 adult supervisors or the young campers could have predicted how this simple Tuesday adventure would end in one of Virginia's most tragic caving accidents. Tom Watson, 42, the lead counselor with 17 years of caving experience, had personally traversed these same underground routes 58 times before. How could his calm confidence mislead the group? At 10:30 a.m., Watson led Abby and 7 other teenagers into the cave's gaping 12-foot-wide entrance, their excited voices echoing off ancient stone walls. For the first hour, what followed the carefully mapped plan? The adventure proceeded exactly as the dozens before it. How did the teenagers respond to this alien world? They squeezed through narrow passages requiring them to turn sideways, experiencing the unique thrill of exploring spaces never touched by sunlight. Abby Peterson, who had circled this trip in her camp schedule weeks ago, took deliberate steps over the uneven limestone floor, carefully following Tom's warnings about loose rocks and the slippery clay surfaces that had caused 3 minor injuries in previous years. At 11:45 a.m., what critical point did the group reach? As they ventured approximately 500 feet, 152 meters from the entrance, the main passage suddenly narrowed into what cavers call a breakdown area. What hidden danger lurked in this section? Here, the 15-foot ceiling had partially collapsed centuries ago, creating a chaotic jumble of unstable rocks and tight crevices, requiring careful navigation. The space transformed into a natural obstacle course of jagged limestone edges and uncertain footing, with ceiling heights varying from 3 to 7 feet. Where was Abby positioned in this critical formation? Fourth in line, following just 8 feet behind Tom Watson and 2 other campers, 16-year-olds Michael and Jennifer. Her standard issue 85 lumen headlamp cut through the darkness, illuminating the treacherous path just enough to see 3 to 4 feet ahead in the complete blackness surrounding them. What deadly challenge faced the group at 11:52 a.m.? The breakdown area required each teenager to carefully step from one rock to another across an 8-foot gap. Which stones promised safety and which hid danger? Some rocks were solidly anchored to the cave floor. Others wobbled treacherously under even slight weight. How did Tom guide them? The experienced counselor demonstrated the safest path, shining his 120 lumen headlamp to highlight stable footholds across what cavers called the connector. When Abby's turn came, what seemed like a safe choice? She placed her right foot on what appeared to be a secure stone marked by Tom's light moments earlier. Without warning, what happened next? The football-sized rock suddenly shifted beneath her 110-pound weight. In a heart-stopping instant, her world tilted sideways. Her arms windmilled frantically as she tried regaining balance, but gravity won as she started falling into darkness. It wasn't a long drop, perhaps 3 feet, 91 centimeters. But how did this simple fall turn catastrophic? She landed awkwardly between 2 large rocks, her left ankle twisting with an audible snap. The impact of her fall triggered what secondary disaster? The unstable rock formation above her, disturbed by her sudden movement, began giving way in what cavers fear most, a secondary collapse. Several stones, ranging from fist-sized to ones weighing nearly 20 pounds, 9 kilograms, broke loose from the cave ceiling and walls. What final defense did Abby have against the falling rocks? She barely had time to cover her head with her arms before the stones came crashing down around her. One struck her blue helmet with enough force to crack the plastic shell and briefly knock out her headlamp, plunging her into total darkness. When the 15-second rockfall subsided at 11:53 a.m., what nightmarish situation did Abby discover? She found herself partially buried in the narrow passage. What pinned her to the cold stone floor? Rocks covered her torso and left arm while her legs were stretched awkwardly beneath her. The weight pressing on her chest, estimated later at 40 to 50 pounds, made each breath a conscious struggle, the pressure squeezing her ribs with every shallow inhalation. Why didn't she feel immediate pain? The initial shock was more surprising than painful, her body's adrenaline masking what would soon become agony. Then came what horrifying realization. Not only was she partially buried under a layer of limestone fragments, but her right leg was trapped between two immovable boulders, weighing hundreds of pounds each. What desperate attempts to escape followed? She twisted her body trying to pull free, but found herself pinned from multiple directions in the 18-inch high space. Her right leg was stretched out at an unnatural angle, wedged from mid-calf to ankle in a vice-like grip of stone. How quickly did Tom Watson recognize the emergency? He reacted immediately, calling for calm as he scrambled carefully across loose stones to reach Abby's side. What was his first priority at 11:54 a.m.? He needed to free her from the blanket of rocks covering her upper body to prevent restricted breathing and possible crush injuries. How did the team work together? With everyone's help, including two other counselors who quickly joined the rescue, they removed the primary 15-pound rock pressing on her chest. What systematic approach did Tom then use? He carefully removed smaller stones from her torso, working methodically from smallest to largest, as his wilderness first aid training had taught him. Each removed stone allowed Abby to draw slightly deeper breaths, but why did significant relief remain elusive? Her right leg remained firmly trapped, the pain now intensifying as shock began wearing off. What did Tom's 17 years of caving experience tell him about the situation? His trained eyes quickly understood the core problem went beyond the surface debris. How was Abby truly trapped? Her leg was thoroughly wedged in a narrow crevice between two massive rocks, with the awkward 45-degree angle preventing her from gaining enough leverage to pull free. The additional fallen rocks had only complicated matters, pinning her upper body in a position that made self-rescue impossible. What vital question now faced the group? Could they free Abby with their limited tools and experience, or would they need professional help in this precarious location, 500 feet from the cave entrance? How did Abby's body respond as minutes turned to a half hour? The pain intensified dramatically as the initial shock wore off. What different types of pain assaulted her? It wasn't just the sharp agonies where rocks had struck her body, leaving what would later be documented as 17 separate bruises, but also the persistent grinding discomfort of flesh pressed against unyielding stone for prolonged periods. What dangerous symptom appeared at 12:20 p.m.? A creeping numbness began in her toes and slowly spread upward through her foot, the warning sign every first responder fears, indicating circulation was being dangerously compromised. If blood flow remained restricted, how long before permanent damage might occur? Medical standards suggested less than 4 hours before tissue death became a serious risk. What rescue techniques did Tom attempt with his limited resources? He tried everything his Red Cross wilderness training had prepared him for. First, he attempted to shift the smaller of the two main rocks trapping her leg, but discovered what complication. It was actually part of a larger formation, extending several feet into the cave wall, immovable without proper tools like hydraulic jacks or airbags that rescue teams carry. What alternate strategies did he try? He worked to create more space by clearing smaller stones from around her trapped limb, but the critical pressure points remained unchanged. What desperate measure followed? He even attempted using his 185-pound body as a counterweight to give Abby better leverage, but each attempt only seemed to wedge her leg more firmly in place, causing her to cry out in pain. At 12:45 p.m., what difficult decision did Tom face? After nearly an hour of failed rescue attempts, should they continue trying with increasingly desperate measures, or did they need professional cave rescue assistance? After trying everything possible and testing every angle to get her out, what important choice did Tom make at 1:07 p.m.? He told Julie Martinez, the 28-year-old assistant counselor, to take the fastest way back to the surface and call for emergency help. What key information did he send with her? A hand-drawn map showing their exact spot in the cave system, and notes about Abby's condition, including her trapped leg, less feeling in her foot, and dropping body temperature. What was happening on the surface at 1:22 p.m.? Julie sprinted 400 yards to the nearest camp vehicle, fumbling with shaking hands to grab the emergency satellite phone. Who answered her desperate call? The local rescue dispatcher picked up on the second ring as Julie explained the urgent situation and their exact location at Island Ford Cave. What specialized resources existed in this rural area? The Augusta County Emergency Services maintained a dedicated cave rescue team for exactly such emergencies in a region with over 400 mapped caves. How quickly did help mobilize? Within 20 minutes of Julie's call, 12 volunteers were already assembling specialized equipment and converging on Island Ford Cave from all directions within a 30-mile radius. Who were these rescuers? These weren't ordinary first responders, but specially trained cave rescue experts with the Virginia Region 3 Cave Rescue Team, possessing intimate knowledge of both Island Ford Cave and underground rescue techniques. What critical equipment did they bring that the camp counselors lacked? Hydraulic jacks capable of lifting 10 tons, specialized airbags, medical supplies, heating blankets, and communication gear that could work through solid rock. What hope arrived at 2:28 p.m.? The first sign of rescue came as a distant call echoing through the passage, followed by the welcome sight of multiple headlamps bobbing in the darkness around a bend in the tunnel. Who had arrived to help? Julie had returned, leading 4 members of the Augusta County Cave Rescue Team directly to their location, 500 feet from the entrance. What vital equipment did they bring? They carried specialized gear, including a medical kit, warming blankets, and most importantly, a compact extraction system designed for tight spaces. How did professional rescue differ from the earlier attempts? Team leader Mark Wilson, with 23 years of cave rescue experience, immediately took control of the situation. After a 5-minute assessment of both the trapped leg and the injuries from fallen rocks, what specialized approach did he use? He pulled out a small toolkit containing aluminum wedges and hydraulic spreaders designed precisely for this type of extraction. What technical method freed Abby? Working methodically, Wilson inserted a series of progressively larger wedges between the rocks constraining her leg, creating small spaces that combined gradually to reduce pressure without triggering another collapse. After 20 minutes of careful work, how much space did they create? The rescuer managed to open just enough room, barely half an inch, 1.3 centimeters, for paramedic Sarah Jenkins to apply a medical-grade lubricant gel around Abby's trapped leg and ankle. With this final help, and a carefully coordinated pull from 3 team members at precisely the right 30-degree angle, what moment of relief finally came at 3:05 p.m. Abby's leg slipped free from its stone prison after more than 3 hours of entrapment. What surprising pain followed freedom? The relief at 3:05 p.m. was immediate, but brief. As blood rushed back into her leg after hours of reduced circulation, Abby experienced what medics call reperfusion pain, more intense than anything during the entrapment itself. She cried out as pins and needles sensations turned to burning agony throughout her right leg. What additional injuries now became apparent? With her leg freed, the team could properly assess damage caused by the fallen rocks. 7 significant bruises along her back and shoulders, with one particularly concerning 2-inch gash on her left shoulder blade, where the skin had been broken and was now seeping blood at a slow but steady rate. How did professional evacuation begin? At 3:12 p.m., they carefully transferred Abby to a specialized sked stretcher, a flexible plastic rescue basket designed for tight cave passages, securing her body with 6 straps to prevent any movement that might cause further injury. What challenges faced the rescue team? In the narrow confines of Island Ford Cave, with passages as small as 24 inches in places, the journey out required extreme care. How long did the careful extraction take? Nearly 90 minutes to cover the 500 feet back to the entrance. What greeted them as they finally emerged at 4:43 p.m. into the late afternoon sunlight? An Augusta County ambulance waited just 30 yards from the cave entrance, its rear doors already open in anticipation, with 2 paramedics standing by to continue treatment during the 17-minute drive to Augusta Medical Center. What urgent medical concerns did doctors have when Abby arrived at Augusta Medical Center at 5:09 p.m.? The emergency team conducted thorough examinations, particularly worried about compartment syndrome, a dangerous condition where pressure builds within muscle groups after crush injuries, potentially leading to permanent tissue damage if not treated within 6 hours. What other trauma required assessment? They were equally concerned about possible internal injuries from the impact of falling rocks, particularly around her ribcage, where stones weighing up to 20 pounds, 9 kilograms, had rested for over 3 hours. What did diagnostic imaging reveal? X-rays and an emergency CT scan confirmed no fractures in her right leg, but discovered 2 hairline fractures in her lower ribs that had been hidden by the broader pain. How long was her hospital stay? After 36 hours of observation and treatment for mild hypothermia, dehydration, and soft tissue injuries, Abby was released to recover at home. Was there permanent damage? Despite the serious nature of her entrapment, she made a full physical recovery over the following 19 days, though the psychological impact of the incident would take longer to heal. The Augusta County Cave Rescue Team later used Abby's case in training programs, showing how specialized equipment and proper technique can save lives underground. Camp Cumbie now requires advanced safety protocols for all cave trips. Small changes that might prevent another teenager from experiencing the same terrifying ordeal.